This story is a fictional narrative inspired by real-life emotions and everyday experiences. Chapter 1, The 2,000-Square-Foot House. I can't tell you how many times I've come home at 10 p.m., turned on every single light, flipped on the TV, and just sat there until 2 in the morning. All just so I wouldn't have to deal with the silence. Tonight is December 24th, Christmas Eve. I pulled into the supermarket parking lot at 7 p.m. My car was the only one there, besides a few employee cars. I turned off the engine and just sat for a minute, watching the first few snowflakes of the season land softly on my windshield. Winters in Chicago are freezing, but I've never gotten used to that feeling of walking into an empty house after a long day. Inside the store, Christmas music was playing loudly. Some little girls were in line at the checkout, carrying big gift bags and laughing with their mom. I squeezed past them and headed straight for the grocery aisle. I grabbed an apple, a small carton of milk, a pack of instant noodles. Looking at my almost empty basket, I stopped in front of the meat section. There were some nice pork ribs, wrapped in plastic, looking really fresh. I stared at them for a minute, then walked away. Cooking ribs for one person just feels weird. At the checkout, the cashier, Maria, she knows me because I always shop at this time, smiled and said, "Not buying much tonight? No special dinner for the holiday." I tried to smile back. It was just a little twitch of the mouth, nothing in my eyes. Just me. Maria nodded, but for a second, something flickered in her eyes. Pity or just being polite? I don't know. I paid, took my plastic bag, and walked back to my car. Those words stuck with me the whole drive home. Just me. 3 little words, but man, they felt heavy. I'm David, 42 years old, a structural engineer. I've been living alone in this house, outside Chicago, for 5 years. My life is steady. Come home from work, cook for one, watch TV by myself, sleep alone. 5 years ago, my wife left because she wasn't happy. I get it, but I can't talk to anyone about it. Some things a guy just doesn't know how to start explaining. When I got home, I flipped all the lights on. Living room, kitchen, hallway. The whole 2,000-square-foot house lit up bright, feeling warmer because of it. I hung up my coat, went straight to the kitchen, and put my bag on the counter. I turned on the stove and put water in a pot. While I waited for it to boil, I leaned against the counter and looked out the window over the sink. My neighbor Mike's house had its warm yellow lights on. Through the glass, I could see the shadows of his 3 kids running back and forth in the living room. Mike, that big funny guy, was carrying this huge turkey to the table. His wife Jenny was setting out plates. The kids were squealing with excitement. Mike reached down and ruffled the oldest kid's hair, laughing out loud. I just watched. I couldn't look away. The warm lights, the laughter, the coziness. It was such a perfect picture, it actually hurt. The water in my pot started to boil. I jumped, reached over, and pulled the curtain shut. That gray fabric covered the whole scene, blocking it out. I stood there for a second, my hand still holding the curtain. The only sounds in the kitchen were the bubbling water and the Christmas music from that little speaker I keep on the fridge, the noise I'd turn on just to fill up the empty space. I put the noodles in, waited 3 minutes, poured them into a bowl. I carried the bowl to the dining table, this long wooden table that could easily seat 6 people, but tonight had just one bowl. 1 pair of chopsticks, 1 glass of water. I stuck the chopsticks in the noodles and watched the steam rise. And suddenly a memory of another evening popped into my head. 3 months ago, at Lisa's place. Lisa made spaghetti. She was wearing this little flower print apron, busy stirring the tomato sauce. I was sitting at the table, peeling garlic. Her apartment was tiny, maybe half the size of my living room, but it felt warm. She had little plants on the windowsill, photos of her friends stuck on the fridge with magnets. Her smell, lavender and flower, was everywhere. After dinner, I did the dishes. Lisa dried them and put them away. We worked side by side in this comfortable silence. I remember how it felt when her hand accidentally touched mine while she was passing me a bowl. Warm, soft. I remember thinking, maybe this time it'll be okay. Then Lisa said, "David, we need to talk." Her voice was soft, but there was something firm at the end of it. I turned around, still holding the sponge. She was leaning against the counter, arms wrapped around herself, the way people stand when they're about to say something hard. "You know, don't you?" she asked, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. I didn't say anything. I put the sponge down and wiped my hands on my jeans. "I've thought about this a lot," Lisa said, her voice starting to shake. "I thought I could accept it, because I love you, but..." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. I understood. I've heard that sentence twice in my life. First from my wife 5 years ago, then from a girl I dated a few years after the divorce, and now the third time, from Lisa. It's always the same. They start with "I love you" and end with "but." That little word "but" sounds so light, but it crushes me every time. "I'm sorry," Lisa cried, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I know I'm being selfish, but I'm scared. I'm scared that 5-10 years from now, I'll look back and regret it. I'm scared I'm not strong enough to, She didn't finish. She didn't need to. I knew what she was afraid of. A life without kids. Long nights with a man who couldn't give her what most women want. Waking up one day and realizing she's getting old next to me, feeling empty. "It's okay," I cut her off. My voice sounded weird, not like my own. "I get it." I didn't cry. I never cry in front of them when I hear those words. I just stood there looking at her, then walked to the door. Lisa called after me, "David, stay, you can sleep on the couch." But I didn't turn back. I got in my car, started it, and drove back to my 2,000 square foot house. That night, I turned on every light, turned on the TV, and sat there until 2 a.m. A tear fell into my noodle soup. I startled myself and touched my cheek. Wet. I wasn't crying, my eyes were just leaking. Probably the steam, or the Christmas music. I wiped it with my sleeve and told myself, "You're 42, man, cut it out." Next to my bowl was the Christmas card my sister sent, Sarah. She lives all the way in California with her husband, 2 kids, and a new yellow lab. The card had a picture of them in their living room. A Christmas tree taller than anyone, decorated with blinking lights and shiny red ornaments. The kids were in their pajamas, hair all messy, grinning from ear to ear. Sarah was sitting on the floor, hugging the dog, and her husband was behind her with his arm around her shoulder. Everyone looked so happy. On the back, Sarah had written, "Hey, big brother, come out here next year for Christmas. We miss you. Merry Christmas." I read that line over and over. "We miss you." I'm sure she does, but I can't go there. Go to Sarah's house, see her family, see their happiness, and then have to come back here alone. That would be even worse. I folded the card, set it aside, and finished my noodles. They were cold by then, soft and mushy. I ate them anyway. I'm David, 42. I have a 2,000 square foot house, a steady job, a new car. From the outside, my life is fine. No, it's more than fine. It's what a lot of people dream of. But I have a secret only 3 women know, my ex-wife, the girlfriend after the divorce, and Lisa. Every time they found out, they left. Not because they were bad people. They were good. They really loved me. But love just wasn't strong enough to get past this one thing. Lisa's words still haunt me. It's really hard for a woman in the prime of her life to accept this. She was right, I get it. That's why I don't blame them. I only blame myself, my body, my luck. But on nights like this, understanding doesn't make the pain any less. It just makes me feel more alone. Because I know deep down, I'll never have what people call a family. The thing Mike next door has, the thing my sister has, the thing I want so badly it makes my insides ache. The clock on the wall struck 11 p.m. I turned off the TV, and the room went dead silent immediately, just the wind howling outside. I walked through every room, turning off all the lights. Living room dark, kitchen dark, hallway dark. Finally, I went up to my bedroom, climbed into bed, and lay on my back, staring at the ceiling. In the dark, my phone screen lit up. I scrolled through Facebook. Friends posting pictures of their get-togethers. Mike's family next door posted a picture of the kids opening presents. An old college friend wrote, "Warm Christmas with my loving family," with a picture of him hugging his wife and 2 kids in front of their sparkling tree. I turned off my phone, put it on the nightstand, just lay there in the darkness. After a long time, I whispered into the air, "I just need just one person here with me." My voice was rough, tiny. It disappeared into the darkness immediately. No one heard. I closed my eyes. In my head, I saw Lisa's face, then my ex-wife's, then Mike's kids, then my sister holding that yellow dog. All of it mixed together, spinning around in the blackness behind my eyelids. I don't know how long I lay there. 5 minutes, 10, half an hour. Ding dong. I jumped. The doorbell rang in the middle of the night, loud and sudden. I sat straight up and looked at the clock, 11:15 p.m. Who comes over at this hour? My heart was pounding. I threw on a sweater and ran downstairs in my bare feet. All kinds of thoughts raced through my head. Accident, police, bad news about my sister. I flipped on the hall light and looked through the peephole. A small figure stood there, wearing a knit hat, holding a box. I opened the door. Freezing wind rushed in, carrying tiny snowflakes. The woman standing there looked at me and smiled. a little bit of an awkward, shy smile. She was around 35, with kind eyes and dark circles underneath, like she hadn't been sleeping well. In her hands was a rectangular box of cookies wrapped in red cellophane with a green ribbon. "Sorry to bother you so late," she said softly, her voice a little shaky from the cold. "I'm your new neighbor, just moved in last week. Number 12, I made way too many cookies and didn't know who to give them to. I saw your light was still on." She paused, looking into my eyes. There was something in her gaze that felt really familiar. The look of someone who knows what it's like to stay awake alone at night. The look of someone who also bakes a ton of cookies just to keep from thinking too much. The look of someone who's lonely. I stood there, still holding the door. The cold wind was blowing her hair around. She didn't seem in a hurry to leave, didn't say anything else. She just stood there, holding the cookies, waiting. I looked at her. Around 35. Kind eyes. Dark circles like she doesn't sleep. She's lonely too, just like me. I knew it, with that instinct you get when you've lived alone for too long. After a long moment, and maybe just a few seconds, but it felt like forever, I opened the door wide. "Thank you," I said, my voice rough. "Want to come in for something warm to drink? It's freezing out there." The woman smiled, a real smile this time, less awkward. "I'm Mia," she said, holding the box out to me. "Merry Christmas." I took the box. It was still warm, fresh out of the oven. The smell of butter and sugar filled my nose, strangely comforting. "Thanks, I'm David." I paused for a second, then added, "Merry Christmas to you too." Mia stepped through the doorway. Behind her, snow was still falling, blanketing the small front yard. I closed the door, and my 2,000-square-foot house suddenly didn't feel so empty anymore. Just a woman with warm cookies standing in my hallway on Christmas Eve. I don't know what's going to happen, but for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of the silence. Chapter 2, The New Neighbor. In the days after Christmas, I noticed the woman next door lived alone. It's not like I was trying to notice. It's just that when you live by yourself for a long time, your eyes get used to spotting other people in the neighborhood who also live alone. It's like an instinct, like how ants recognize each other. She'd come out in front of house number 12 around 7 in the morning when I was making coffee and looking out the window. Wearing a dark blue puffy coat and a white knit hat, holding a snow shovel. Almost a foot of snow had fallen overnight, and she was slowly shoveling, one scoop at a time, looking like it was hard work. No one came out to help. No man's voice called from inside. No kids ran out to play in it. I stood at the kitchen window, sipping my bitter coffee, watching her shovel. Her wrists were small. Every time she pushed the shovel into the snow, she wobbled a little. I wondered if I should go help. But then I thought, I'm a strange man. I don't know her. Maybe if I just show up to help, she'd get scared. So I didn't. I pulled the curtain shut and went to work. Over the next few days, I saw her a few more times. In the mornings, her small gray sedan would leave around 7:45. In the evenings around 6, she'd come home carrying groceries. Her lights would be on until 10, then off. No visitors, no music, no noise. So much like me. It got to the point where one evening, eating noodles in front of the TV, I suddenly thought, I wonder what she's eating tonight. Also noodles? Then I laughed at myself. A 42-year-old man wondering what his neighbor eats. But really, I know how boring it is to eat alone. So I felt strangely close to her. A stranger, but someone who feels the same way. The next Sunday, I went out to get the paper. It had snowed all night, and the whole neighborhood was white when I woke up. I opened the door and stepped onto the porch, the snow coming up almost to my knees. I'd taken a few steps when I heard a strange noise. Vroom, 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 cough! I turned and saw her standing next to a gas-powered snowblower. The engine was sputtering, black smoke puffing out. Then it died. She pulled the cord again. Vroom, vroom. The machine coughed a few times and quit. She stood there, hands on her hips, breath coming out in white puffs in the cold air, looking a little frustrated. I watched for a minute. Then, I don't know why, my feet just started walking over. Need a hand? She turned around. Her face was a little red from the cold, eyes wide. Then she recognized me. Oh, the neighbor from Christmas Eve, she said, smiling a smile that erased some of the tiredness. Thanks, but do you know how to fix a snowblower? I looked at the machine. An older model Ariens. The carburetor was probably flooded. I'll take a look. I knelt down in the snow, turned a few screws, checked the spark plug. 15 minutes later, I wiped my hands on my pants and stood up. Try it now. She pulled the cord. The engine roared to life, running smoothly, puffing out light white smoke. Her face lit up. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I've been messing with it since early this morning and I was about to cry. I smiled, a little embarrassed. No problem, it's just old. You should think about getting a new one. She nodded eagerly, then suddenly looked at me. Hey, do you want some coffee? I just made some as a thank you. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to go home. Part of me was curious about that house and about this woman who lived alone. Sure. Her house was laid out just like mine, but the feeling was totally different. The living room still had some unpacked cardboard boxes stacked in the corner, an old cream-colored sofa, a little worn on the arms. On the coffee table were some elementary school textbooks, an old laptop, and a steaming coffee cup. Sorry for the mess, she said, scooping up the textbooks and setting them aside. Just moved in, haven't had time to organize. Have a seat, I'll get you a cup. I sat down and looked around. No pictures on the walls. On the mantel, there was a photo frame turned face down. I didn't look closely, but guessed it was an old photo. From before. She came back with a hot cup of coffee and set it in front of me. Thanks so much, she said, sitting across from me, hugging her own coffee cup, letting the warmth rise to her face. I'm Mia, you know that already. And you are? David. David, she repeated like she was memorizing it. You're in number 14, right? I see your car parked out front. I nodded. A moment of silence, just the wind outside and the hum of the heater. Mia stared into her coffee, then suddenly said very softly, I just got divorced after 7 years. I didn't say anything, just looked at her. She still didn't look up. He said I was too boring, she said with a sad smile, her lips curving, but her eyes not smiling. He needed someone more lively, more fun. Someone who likes to go out, see friends. Me? I like staying home, reading, cooking. That's boring, I guess. She paused and took a sip of coffee. So he went to find someone lively. I stayed quiet. In my head, I heard a different sentence, one I'd heard 3 times. It's really hard for a woman in the prime of her life to accept this. It's also a way of judging someone by a certain standard, also a way of saying, I can't stay with you. I know that feeling. What about you? Mia looked up at me. Have you been alone long? I hesitated. Just a second, but enough for her to see. 5 years. Mia nodded, didn't ask more. She just said, living alone has its good sides. Freedom, do what you want. But after a while, sometimes I just wish I had someone to talk to about stupid stuff. What happened at work today, good or bad? Cooking something good, just that. I nodded. I get it. And I really did. That feeling of coming home from work, wanting to tell someone something, but no one's there. Cooking something good, but then not bothering because eating alone makes it not taste good anymore. Lying in bed at night, wanting to say to someone, it's so cold tonight, but no one to say it to. We sat quietly for a while, drinking our coffee. Outside, the snow kept falling. From that day on, Sunday mornings became a thing. No planning, no texting. Around 9 o'clock, my doorbell would ring. I'd open it, Mia would be standing there with a box of fresh baked goods or a bag of fruit, smiling. Coffee. First week, she brought butter cookies. Second week, banana bread. Third week, baked apples with cinnamon. I'd make coffee, and we'd sit at my kitchen table, that long table for 6. Now with 2 coffee cups, a plate of goodies, and someone sitting across from me. We talked about all kinds of random stuff, her job, teaching 3rd graders to read, some of them little rascals but adorable. My job, construction blueprints, freezing cold job sites in winter. She told me she loves old movies, especially black and white ones. I told her I like jazz, listened to it in the evenings. She asked if I could cook. I said just noodles. She laughed and said she'd teach me something easy next week. Nothing romantic, just 2 lonely people being friends. But sometimes I found myself looking forward to Sundays. From Monday, I'd be thinking about Sunday. I'd check the fridge to make sure I had coffee for 2. I'd wonder if the weather would be nice Sunday morning, or if there'd be a blizzard that might keep her from coming over. One time on Saturday at the supermarket, I saw a basket of strawberries, bright red, unusually pretty. I bought them, washed them, put them in a bowl. Sunday morning when Mia came over, I put the bowl on the table. She looked at me, a little surprised, then smiled. Oh, beautiful strawberries. You went shopping? I nodded, a little embarrassed. Yeah, they looked good. That's all. But at that moment, I realized I bought those strawberries because I thought of her. One Sunday morning in late January, we were sitting at my kitchen table. Outside, the sun was actually peeking through the gray clouds for once, throwing a weak beam of light across the wood floor. I was telling her a story about getting lost in a supermarket when I was a kid, how it took 2 hours to find my mom. I told her I cried like a baby, thinking she'd left me forever. Mia sat across from me, holding her coffee, listening. When I got to the part about sitting and crying in front of the vegetable stand and a lady giving me a lollipop to calm me down, she burst out laughing. She laughed, a real laugh, eyes squinting, shoulders shaking, and in that moment the sunlight from the window hit her brown hair, making it shine with this warm glow. I could see every strand, the shadow of her long eyelashes on her cheek when she laughed, that tiny little dimple by the corner of her mouth. My heart skipped a beat, then started pounding. Harder, much harder. I froze, that feeling, the feeling I haven't had in so long. It hit me out of nowhere, so strong. Something warm spread from my chest through my whole body, like taking a shot of strong liquor in the middle of winter. But right away, something else came, cold fear. That familiar fear, like a snake waking up from hibernation, coiling in my stomach. No, don't. You know what happens. You know how it ends. One more time, more pain. Watching another woman you love walk out the door. My hands on the table suddenly felt ice cold. David? Mia's voice sounded far away. You okay? You just went pale. I jumped, touched my cheek, cold. I'm fine, I tried to sound normal, probably just tired. Mia looked at me for a moment, her eyes asking a question, but she didn't say anything else. She just nodded and finished her coffee. We talked a little more, but I didn't hear any of it. The only thing in my head was the thumping of my heart, and another voice, cold, whispering, You like someone again. You're about to face it again. You're about to get hurt again. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The room was pitch black, silent, just the hum of the furnace in the basement. I thought about Mia's smile that morning, the sunlight on her hair, that tiny dimple, how my heart raced. Then I thought about Lisa, about my ex-wife, about the other girl, about the pitying looks on their faces when they said goodbye, about the sentence, "It's really hard for a woman to accept this," about the feeling of watching them walk out, unable to hold on, unable to explain, because they deserve to be happy. I lay still in the darkness, and then I whispered, almost asking myself, should I just stop before it's too late? No one answered. Just the wind outside and the snow still falling, covering the whole little neighborhood in white. Chapter 3, The Wall. I started avoiding Mia after that Sunday morning. It wasn't that I didn't want to see her. It was that I was scared to. Scared of my heart racing. Scared of watching her smile. Most of all, scared that when I was near her, I forgot who I was. A 42-year-old divorced man with a problem he can't tell anyone. That next Sunday, I got up at 6, put on workout clothes, and went for a run. It was still pitch black, ice on the sidewalks, and I ran until my lungs felt like bursting. Around 9:30, I got home. Through my window, I saw Mia's shadow on her porch at number 12 holding her cookie box, looking over at my house. I hid behind the curtain until she went back inside. Only when her door closed did I go in. The next Sunday, I did the exact same thing. And the one after that. Her text would pop up. Busy this morning? I'd reply 2 hours later. Yeah, got tied up with something. She'd send a smiley face, but I knew she understood. I told myself hundreds of times a day, just keep it like this. Don't let anyone else into your life. You're fine. You've made it 5 years. You can make it 5 more. But every night I'd lie there looking over at her house, seeing the light on till 10, then off. And I'd wonder, is she thinking about me? Is she sad? Does she understand? Then I'd get mad at myself. What are you doing? You're hurting her. You need to stop this now. One Thursday night, it was snowing hard. I was sitting watching TV, but not really watching. The clock said 9:30. The wind was howling outside. Knock, knock, knock. Someone at the door. I sat still, thinking it was just the wind. But then the knock came again, louder, more insistent. I opened the door. Mia stood there, snow all over her hat and shoulders. Her face was red from the cold, but her eyes were fixed on me, not smiling. Can I come in? I stepped aside and opened the door wide. She came in, stood in the hallway, taking off her gloves, but not her coat. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft, but each word clear. Did I do something wrong? I was silent. Suddenly you're avoiding me, she said, taking a breath. No coffee, no replies to texts. Sunday mornings I see your car come back around 10, but you never come over. I still said nothing. My hands started clenching. I know what it feels like to be shut out. Her voice trembled a little, from cold or emotion, I couldn't tell. I spent 7 years with someone who made me feel invisible. If you need space, I get it, but at least tell me. Don't act like I don't exist. That last sentence was softer, but it hurt more than anything. I looked at the floor. My hands were clenched so tight my nails were digging into my palms. David, her voice softened. Look at me. I looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she wasn't crying. She just looked at me, waiting. "Come in and sit down," I said, my voice rough. We sat on the couch, facing each other. The huge living room suddenly felt incredibly small. Mia had taken off her coat, sitting on the edge of the couch, hands on her knees. I sat across from her, back straight, hands on my thighs. I opened my mouth. No sound came out. I tried again. My throat was dry, like it was full of sand. Mia looked at my hands. I looked down. My hands were clenched, knuckles white from gripping so hard. All the blood rushed there, burning. She didn't say anything, didn't push, just sat there, looking at me, waiting. I took a deep breath. In my head, a voice urged me on. Say it, and she'll leave, like the others. Done, over, stop waiting. I started, barely a whisper. I have a problem. Mia stayed quiet, her eyes on me. I stared at the floor, couldn't look at her. A guy thing, my voice cracked. I had to swallow hard to continue. I can't, I only last about a minute. A long pause. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. My wife left me because of it, I said flatly, like reading a verdict. 3 women I loved after her left me for the same reason. I ran my hand over my face. It was shaking. The last one said, "It's really hard for a woman in the prime of her life to accept this." She was right. I get it. That's why I don't blame them. Now I finally dared to look at Mia. Her eyes were still on me, not blinking. I didn't see disgust in them. No pity either. Just listening. "I like you, Mia," I said, my voice hoarse, like I was about to cry. "I like you a lot, but I don't want to hurt you." So I thought it was better to not start anything. I finished and dropped my head. My hands were still clenched, but now they were shaking. I waited. The familiar sentence. "You're a good guy, but..." I'd heard it 3 times. The 4th was coming. Silence stretched on. 10 seconds, 20, a minute. Then I heard Mia sigh, not a disappointed sigh. The kind of sigh someone makes before they say something hard. You know what? Her voice was soft but clear. My ex-husband cheated on me. I looked up. She looked at me, her eyes now distant. "He could do everything, David," she paused. "He could satisfy me physically. But he wasn't faithful. He hurt me emotionally for 7 years. A little bit every day, like water wearing down a rock." She looked straight into my eyes. No tears in hers, just a strange kind of certainty. "I don't need a man who's perfect in the bedroom," she said slowly, emphasizing each word. "I need a man who's honest. A man who stays when things get hard. A man who doesn't run away from problems." I looked at her, speechless. My mind was blank. The familiar feeling of a woman walking out the door didn't come. Instead, she was still sitting there, across from me. Mia reached out and took my clenched fist in her hand. Her hand was warm, so warm I could feel it spread from the back of my hand up my arm, into my chest, all the way to my tight throat. "I'm not saying it'll be easy," she whispered. "I have my own wounds. Some nights I still wake up crying over things my ex said. Some days I'm scared I'm not good enough for anyone." She squeezed my hand gently. "But I promise I won't run away just because of something you can't change." I looked into her eyes. For the first time in my life, when a woman learned the truth about me, I didn't see a disappointment, not pity, just understanding. Something broke open in my chest. Not painfully, just something that had been pressed down too long, finally loosening. I don't know if I was crying. My eyes just stung, and I was afraid to blink in case the tears spilled over. "I'm not lying to you," Mia added, her voice as soft as a breath. "I'm not promising a fairy tale. I'm just promising I'll stay." I nodded. I couldn't speak. My hand slowly unclenched and held hers. Outside, the snow was still falling. The wind was still blowing. But in this 2,000 square foot living room, I didn't feel empty anymore. For the first time in 5 years, I dared to think maybe I won't be alone forever. Chapter 4, The Little Things. We started dating, but our dating wasn't like in the movies. No big bouquets of flowers, no fancy restaurants, no sweet love confessions. Our dates were Saturday nights watching movies on my couch or hers, cooking dinner together, her at the stove and me washing vegetables, going to the supermarket and arguing about whether to buy Frosted Flakes or that healthy granola she likes. "Granola is better for you," Mia said, holding the brown box, looking at me like she knew everything. "But Frosted Flakes taste better," I said, holding my box, looking back at her. There we stood in the middle of the grocery aisle, people walking past, 2 almost 40-year-olds arguing about cereal. In the end, we bought both. In the shopping cart, next to the 2 cereal boxes, were vegetables, meat, fish, milk, no more single apple, small milk carton, pack of noodles. For the first time in 5 years, I was shopping for 2 people. Mia taught me how to cook. "Look, you have to chop the shallots really fine like this," she said, standing next to me, holding a knife, chopping fast. Not big chunks like you do for your noodles. I watched and learned. She was so patient. When I chopped them uneven, she didn't get mad, just smiled. Everyone's like that the first time. You'll get better with practice. The first thing I learned was scrambled eggs. Sounds easy, but Mia said to make good scrambled eggs, you need low heat, beat the eggs really well, and add a little milk to make them fluffy. I did what she said, stirring until my arm got tired. When I poured them in the pan, they sizzled and smelled amazing. Mia stood behind me, looking into the pan. Oh, they look perfect. You're a natural. I turned around and saw her eyes light up, her smile bright. Suddenly, I felt this warmth. That feeling, making someone happy with something small. I hadn't felt it in a long time. In return, I taught Mia about indoor gardening. Snake plants don't need much water, I said, pointing at the lush green plants on her windowsill. Once a week is enough. And the money tree needs a spot with indirect sunlight. Mia watched closely, nodding sometimes. She touched the leaves gently, like she was afraid of hurting them. I've never been able to keep any plant alive, she said, her voice a little sad. My ex-husband said I had a black thumb, that everything I touched would die. I looked at her. I know that feeling, being told things like that. It's like a small cut, not deep, but slow to heal. It's not your thumb, I said. You just never had anyone to teach you. Now you have me. The plants will live. Mia looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled, a smile that had a little bit of wetness at the corners of her eyes. Yeah. One Saturday night at the end of February, there was still snow, but not as deep as before. We were watching a movie on my couch. I don't remember what movie, just that it was an old black and white one that Mia loved. I sat at one end of the couch, she sat at the other. Between us was a wool blanket and a big bowl of popcorn. During a romantic scene, when the main character confessed his love in the rain, I suddenly felt something warm leaning against my shoulder. Mia had put her head on my shoulder. I sat still, afraid to move. The warmth from her cheek went through my sweater, spread all through my arm. The smell of her hair, herbal shampoo, drifted around. She breathed softly, evenly. My heart beat fast, but not from fear, from peace. I slowly raised my hand and gently stroked her hair. It was soft, smooth. She snuggled deeper into my shoulder without saying anything. On screen, the characters were kissing in the rain. But I didn't need that. Just this, someone leaning on me, warmth spreading, soft breathing, was enough. I thought, I wish time could stop right now. Then one night, we decided to try that thing. Mia didn't say it, but I understood. It's part of any relationship. And I knew it was time to face it. I braced myself for failure. In my head, I already imagined the scene. It ends fast, Mia's awkward silence. Then she'd say, it's okay. That nice voice. And slowly we'd drift apart. Like before. And just like I expected, it ended fast. I lay still, facing the wall. In my head, the old sentences echoed, you're a good guy, but it's really hard for a woman in the prime of her life. I'm sorry, David. I waited for the awkward silence. But instead, I felt Mia's arm wrap around my waist. She hugged me from behind, pressing close to my back. Her warmth spread through me, relaxing my tense muscles. Hey, she whispered in my ear. Do you know what my favorite moments are? I stayed quiet, still not daring to turn around. When you stroke my head before we sleep, she said, her hand gently rubbing my back. When you make me coffee without asking, because you remember I take less sugar and more milk. When you look at me when I smile and your eyes light up. She paused, taking a breath. Those are the things I need every day, David, not what just happened. I closed my eyes, my throat tightened. I know you're scared. Her voice was soft as breath. I know you've heard hurtful words too many times, but I'm not them. I felt my eyes sting, a tear escaped soaking into the pillow. You don't have to be perfect, she continued. You just have to be here with me every day. I turned around to face her. Her dark eyes were deep, looking at me without blinking. No disappointment, no pity, just a gentleness that made my heart feel like it was breaking. Thank you, I whispered, my voice rough, having to swallow hard to continue. Thank you for not leaving. Mia didn't say anything. She just pulled me into her arms and held me tight. I buried my face in her hair and cried, not sobbing, just tears flowing that I couldn't stop. For the first time in my life, I wasn't crying from sadness. I was crying from relief. Because for the first time, there was a woman who saw the real me. With all my flaws, my wounds, my fears, and she stayed. I'm not going anywhere, Mia whispered, gently patting my back. You can relax now. That night, we fell asleep in each other's arms. I don't know when I fell asleep. I just know that when I woke up, morning light was seeping through the curtains, making faint streaks on the floor. Mia was still in my arms, hair messy, face against my chest, breathing evenly. I lay still, staring at the ceiling. My mind was empty. No nightmares, no scenes of me being left alone in my 2,000 square foot house. No women turning their backs and walking out the door. Just her warmth, her steady breathing, and a strange feeling of peace. I looked down and saw Mia opening her eyes. She looked up at me, smiling sleepily. "Good morning." "Good morning," I said, my voice still a little rough. She snuggled deeper into me and closed her eyes again. "It's early, sleep a little more." I held her tighter and closed my eyes. Outside, snow still covered the whole neighborhood in white. Chicago winter was long. But in this room, in each other's arms, we weren't lonely anymore. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't have nightmares. And when I woke up, I didn't face silence. I faced Mia. To me, that was enough. Chapter 5, The Past Appears. One day at the end of March, when the snow had mostly melted except for white patches under trees, I got a text from an unknown number. I was at a construction site when my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. During my lunch break in the car, I checked it. An unknown number, not in my contacts. "David, it's Lisa. I'm sorry to contact you out of the blue. I read an article about your company in an industry magazine. I'm glad you're successful. I just wanted to say I regret what happened. I hope you're happy." I sat in my car holding my phone, reading that message over and over. 5 lines, 4 sentences, 37 words. Lisa, the girl who said that sentence that haunted me for 2 years. It's really hard for a woman in the prime of her life to accept this. The girl I loved so much that after we broke up, it took me 6 months before I could look at our photos again. The biggest wound, because she was the last one who gave me hope before crushing it. I remember those weekend evenings in her tiny apartment, the smell of her perfume, faint jasmine, the way she laughed at my jokes, head tilted, hand covering her mouth. The first time I dared to say I love you, 3 years after my divorce, and she cried and hugged me tight. Then I remembered that night, the night she said, "We need to talk." The night I watched her cry, heard her say, "I'm scared that 5-10 years from now, I'll look back and regret it." The night I walked out of her apartment and drove around the city until 3 a.m. I didn't reply to the text. I turned off my phone, put it in my pocket, and started the car. But all afternoon, my mind wasn't at work. I miscalculated steel quantities twice. Almost forgot a meeting with a client. When I got home, I was so distracted I almost drove past my own driveway. That night, Mia and I cooked together. She made beef stew, and I was in charge of cutting carrots and potatoes. Everything seemed normal. She told me stories about school, about a student who drew her a watercolor picture. I nodded, asking a few questions just to be polite. But I didn't tell her about Lisa. Not because I was hiding it on purpose, it's just I didn't know how to start. "Oh, my ex-girlfriend texted me today." Or "Lisa reached out, but I didn't reply." It felt weird. Besides, it wasn't important, right? I didn't reply. I had no intention, so why bring it up? But that night, I couldn't sleep. Mia was sleeping soundly next to me, breathing evenly. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about Lisa, about what happened, about that sentence, "I regret." Regret what? Regret breaking up? Regret saying what she said? Or was it just a polite thing to say? The next morning, I still said nothing, and I told myself, it's in the past. No need to bring it up. A week later, Mia and I were in her kitchen, getting ready to bake. She needed to look up a recipe online, but her phone was dead. "Can I borrow your phone for a sec?" she asked, reaching out. I handed it over without thinking. Unlocked it with my fingerprint and put it on the table. Mia took it and opened the browser. I turned to wash some dishes. After a moment, I noticed it got quiet. No web browsing sounds, no comments about recipes, just silence. I turned around. Mia was staring at my phone. On the screen was Lisa's text. I'd forgotten to delete it. Her face was expressionless. She read it, then put the phone down on the table and looked at me. My heart dropped into a deep hole. "Lisa texted you." Her voice was soft, but I heard something at the end of it. "Yeah," I swallowed. "A few days ago, I didn't reply." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's not important," I said, trying to keep my voice normal. "I didn't reply. I have no intentions. It's just an old message." Mia looked at me. Her eyes weren't angry, but there was something there that made me uncomfortable. That look, I'd seen it somewhere before. I think in the mirror, those times I'd looked at myself after lying to someone. "I'm not mad that an ex texted you," she said slowly. "I'm mad that you hid it from me." I was silent. "You're doing that thing again, protecting yourself by staying quiet." Her words hit me like a slap. Yes, exactly right. I realized it immediately. That's exactly what I'd done. I hid it, not because I had any feelings for Lisa, but because I was scared. Scared of explaining. Scared of reopening old wounds. Scared of facing questions. I opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say. Mia stood up and walked to the window, looking outside. Her back was straight, arms wrapped around herself, the way people stand when they're trying to stay calm. "You know what, David?" she said without turning around. "I spent 7 years with someone who never told me the truth. He hid phone calls from me, hid text messages, hid his real feelings. When I finally found out, I asked myself, who have I been living with for 7 years? Her voice trembled slightly. I don't want that again. I walked closer, standing behind her. I wanted to touch her shoulder, but I couldn't lift my hand. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice rough. I didn't mean to hide it. I'm just not used to this yet." Mia turned around and looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she wasn't crying. Not used to having someone to share things with? I nodded. She sighed, a long, tired sigh. "You have to learn, David," she said more softly. "You have to learn to trust, to open your mouth and say the things that scare you if you don't." She paused, looking straight into my eyes. "If you don't, we'll always be two strangers living together." Those words landed between us like a rock, heavy, cold. I stood there, looking at her. I wanted to say so much. Explain that I didn't mean to, that I was just scared, that I loved her and didn't want to lose her. But all those words got stuck in my throat. All I could say was, "I'm sorry." Mia nodded, but her eyes looked so distant. She went back to the table, picked up my phone, and handed it to me. "Here." Then she went upstairs. I stood alone in the kitchen, looking at the flour mixture on the table, the bowl of eggs, the whisk. Everything seemed frozen. I wanted to run after her, but my feet wouldn't move. That familiar fear rushed back. Fear of making things worse, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of getting hurt again. I stood there for a long time. Finally, I took my phone and opened Lisa's message. I read it one more time, then I deleted it. But I knew, deleting a message is easier than deleting the fear inside you. That night, Mia slept on the couch. I lay alone in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering her words. Two strangers living together. I closed my eyes. In the darkness, I whispered to myself, I have to learn not to be so scared anymore. But how do you learn that? I didn't know. No one ever taught me. Chapter 6, Lisa appears. A week after the fight about the text, Mia and I still had these awkward silences between us. We still cooked together, still watched movies on Saturday nights, and still slept next to each other. But something felt fragile, like thin ice on a lake in early winter. Mia didn't bring up what happened, but sometimes I'd catch her looking at me with questioning eyes, then she'd look away. I wanted to say something, but didn't know where to start. Then Lisa texted again. I'm in Chicago for work, staying 3 days. Can we meet? I want to apologize in person, not by text. I understand if you don't want to, but I hope. I read the message 5 times, 10 times. My mind was chaos. Lisa was here. Lisa wanted to meet. She wanted to apologize. I remembered the day we broke up. Her tear-streaked face, her saying, I'm sorry back then, but it was different from now. Back then it was, I'm sorry I have to leave you. Now it was, I'm sorry I left. I hesitated all day. That evening I told Mia. Lisa texted, I said, sitting next to her on the couch. She's in Chicago, wants to meet me in person to apologize. Mia was quiet. Her eyes were on the TV, but I knew she wasn't watching. Are you going? She asked, her voice strangely calm. I don't know, I admitted. I want to hear what she has to say, but I'm also scared. Mia turned to look at me for a long moment, then she said, Go ahead. I'm not stopping you. I waited for anger, for accusation, but there was none. Just remember, I'm your girlfriend now. Those words were soft, but they landed like a period. Clear. Final. I understood what she didn't say. I'm not stopping you, but if you choose wrong, I won't hold on either. I met Lisa at a small coffee shop near the lake. She picked this place, I knew, because we used to come here. I arrived 10 minutes early, ordered an Americano, and waited. The place looked the same. Exposed brick walls, old bookshelves, the smell of roasted coffee. I looked out the window at the lake sparkling in the late winter sun, the ice almost all gone. David. I turned. Lisa stood there. She was still as beautiful as ever, even more so, hair shorter, dressed more mature, but that smile was the same, slightly tilted, showing the dimple on her left cheek. Can I sit down? I nodded. She sat, putting her bag beside her. Ordered a latte. Then she looked at me, silent for a moment. You still drink black Americano, right? She asked. Yeah. She smiled softly, a smile with a hint of nostalgia. I remember everything. This is your favorite. You hate when they make it too strong. Every time it wasn't right, you'd make a face like a little kid. I said nothing. Something pinched inside me. She remembered. She remembered small things about me. Back then, that made me happy. Now, it just confused me. I'm sorry, Lisa said, her voice soft but clear. For disappearing like that. For not being brave enough. She looked down at her hands, twisting the ring on her finger. I noticed no wedding ring. Back then I was young, David, she continued. 28? I thought I had my whole future ahead of me. I was scared. Scared that if I stayed, someday I'd regret it. Scared I'd grow old next to you and wonder what if. She paused and took a sip of coffee. But I was wrong. Her eyes met mine. They were wet, but not crying yet. I left, met other people, loved other people, but I never found that feeling I had with you. That feeling of being heard, understood, accepted. I stayed quiet, my hand gripped my coffee cup. I've thought about it a lot, David. Her voice trembled slightly. And I realized love matters more than other things. More than what happens in the bedroom. More than fear about the future. I swallowed. My throat was dry. I still have feelings for you, Lisa said, her eyes not leaving mine. I know you have a new girlfriend. I know. I just wanted to say, if you give me another chance, I won't leave you again. Those words landed between us. Heavy, hot, like a burning coal. I looked at Lisa, the woman I once loved deeply. The woman I thought I'd grow old with. The woman who gave me the most hope and then crushed it. A part of me hurt. A small part, somewhere deep, whispered, look, she came back. She realized her mistake. Maybe. Maybe this time would be different. But then, like slow motion, other images appeared in my head. Mia standing in the kitchen, holding a knife, turning to smile at me. Everyone's like that the first time. You'll get better. Mia leaning her head on my shoulder, watching old black and white movies, her warm breath soft. Mia hugging me from behind every night, whispering, you can relax, I'm not going anywhere. Mia saying, I don't need a perfect man. I need someone who stays. I looked at Lisa. Beautiful. Perfect. But she'd left me before. It's too late, Lisa, I said, my voice soft but steady. I found someone who stays. Lisa's face changed, a flash of pain, then she tried to smile. Does she understand about your situation? Yeah, I nodded, and she didn't leave. Lisa looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded, accepting. I understand, she said. I hope you're happy, David, truly. Thank you. I stood up, put money on the table for my coffee. Before I turned away, I looked at Lisa one last time. I hope you're happy, too. I walked out of the coffee shop. Outside, pale sunlight stretched across the lake. I took a deep breath. The cold air stung my lungs, but inside, I felt warm. I knew I'd just done the right thing. I got home at 5 in the evening. Opening the door, I smelled soup cooking. Onions, carrots, beef. My favorite soup. The one Mia knew I loved. I walked into the kitchen. Mia was at the stove, her back to me, stirring the pot. On the radio, an old jazz song played, a warm saxophone. She heard my footsteps and turned, looked at me, didn't ask anything. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her from behind. She stiffened for a second, then relaxed, leaning into me. I told Lisa, I have you now. Mia was quiet. A long moment. Outside the window, the sun was setting, painting the kitchen corner orange. The soup's almost ready, and she said softly, go sit at the table. But I didn't let go. I held her, my cheek against her hair. That familiar herbal smell. The smell of Sunday mornings, movie nights, waking up together. Mia turned around. Her eyes were red-rimmed, wet. She wasn't crying, but tears were ready to spill. Thank you, she whispered. I knew what she was thanking me for. Not for turning Lisa down, but for telling her before I went. For coming home and holding her. For choosing. I love you, I said, for the first time. Mia's eyes widened. Then she wrapped her arms around me tight, burying her face in my chest. I love you too. In the kitchen, the soup bubbled away. The smell filled the whole house. The jazz played on, the saxophone holding long notes. We stood there, holding each other in the kitchen on a late winter evening. Outside, it was getting dark. Streetlights came on in long rows. For the first time, I wasn't scared thinking about the future, because I knew, no matter what, I wouldn't face it alone. Chapter 7, Baseless Jealousy. After meeting Lisa, I thought everything would be fine. I chose Mia. I told her I loved her. That was it, right? But no. Mia started showing strange signs. She still came over, still cooked, still watched movies, but she talked less. Stories about school, about her students, about weekend plans, all got shorter. She'd answer with one-word replies, then go quiet. During movie nights, she sat a little farther from me. Not at the other end of the couch, but far enough for me to notice the distance. The distance that wasn't there before. Before she'd lean on my shoulder, put her feet on my lap, comfortable like she was home. Now she sat straight, holding a pillow, eyes on the screen, but I knew she wasn't watching. "What's wrong?" I asked after 3 days of strange silence. "Nothing." She shook her head, not looking at me. "Something's wrong." I sat next to her. "Talk to me." "You asked too many questions." She stood up and went to the kitchen. "I'm just tired." I stayed on the couch, watching her go. Worry started growing inside me. Something wasn't right. And I knew it had to do with Lisa. One Saturday night, we were silent through the whole dinner. We washed dishes together, neither saying a word. Water running, dishes clinking, the radio from the living room playing in the background. I couldn't take it anymore. "Mia," I turned off the water and faced her. "Please talk to me. I can't live in this silence." She kept her head down, drying dishes. After a long moment, she said, "I'm just scared." "Scared of what?" She put the bowl down and looked out the window. Outside was pitch black, only dim streetlight coming through. "Scared that someday you'll realize you still love Lisa. Scared I'm not good enough." I froze. "Why would you think that?" I stepped closer. "I chose you. I told Lisa I have you. I said I love you." I know her voice was soft as a breath. But words are easy. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but still not crying. "Do you know my ex-husband also chose me?" she said. "On our wedding day, he swore in front of the altar, in front of both families, that he'd love me till death do us part. Then, 7 years later, he chose someone else." I was quiet. I'd never heard Mia talk in detail about her marriage. She'd only mentioned it briefly. Emotional abuse, cheating. But now I saw it went deeper. "He never said directly that I wasn't good enough," Mia continued, her voice shaking. "But every time he came home late, every time he snuck texts, every time he looked at me like he was comparing me to someone else, I felt it. Not pretty enough, not smart enough, not interesting enough." She paused, taking a deep breath. "And when he left me for her, I asked myself, what did I do wrong? What was I missing?" Tears started falling, silent tears without sound. "And now I look at Lisa," she said, eyes on me. "She's beautiful. She's younger than me. She's someone you loved. I look at her and wonder, am I as good as her? Am I enough to make you stay?" My heart clenched. "Mia," I stepped forward, reaching to hug her. She stepped back. "Let me finish." She wiped tears with the back of her hand. "I'm so scared, David. Scared history will repeat itself. Scared that someday you'll look at me and see I'm not as good as other women. Scared you'll go quiet, then distant, then leave like my ex-husband did." Her voice broke. "And the scariest part is, I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive another broken heart." She cried, really cried. Not sobbing, just tears flowing that she couldn't stop. I stood there, looking at her. For the first time, I saw Mia not as the strong woman who came to save me. She was just an ordinary woman, carrying her own wounds, scared, fragile, just like me. I stepped forward and gently pulled her into my arms. This time she didn't step back. She leaned into me and cried, her shoulders shaking. I held her tight. For a long moment, just soft crying and the radio from the living room. "I can't promise I'll never hurt you," I said, my voice rough. "I'm not perfect. I have my own fears, bad habits, times when I go quiet because I don't know what to say." I paused, feeling her warmth. "But I can promise I'll always tell you the truth," I continued. "No matter how hard, no matter how scared, I won't hide things from you. And I'll stay. I won't run away. We'll get through it together." Mia looked up at me. Her eyes were red, her face wet with tears, but something in them softened. "You're not scared?" she asked, her voice stuffy from crying. "I am," I smiled gently. "I'm really scared. Scared of making you sad. Scared of not being good enough. Scared that someday you'll realize I don't deserve you." I reached up and wiped her tears. "But I think it's okay to be scared. As long as we're scared together, facing things together, not alone." Mia looked at me for a long time. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder and let out a long sigh, like letting go of a huge weight. "I'm sorry for pulling away," she whispered. "I was just so scared." I kissed her hair, that familiar herbal smell. I understand, I'm scared too. We stood there, holding each other in the kitchen, among the wet dishes and the steady radio. Outside, the night wind blew gently, moving the bare tree branches. For the first time, I truly understood that Mia wasn't the one who came to save me. She was fighting her own demons too. And we were two people with old wounds, learning together how to heal. Not with grand promises, not with romantic gestures, but by staying, by telling the truth, by accepting that we're both scared but choosing each other anyway. That night, lying in bed, Mia rested her head on my chest, her hand on mine. "David," she called softly. "Yeah? Thank you for not running away." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you for giving me the chance to stay." Outside, a car passed, its headlights briefly crossing the ceiling before disappearing. In the darkness, I felt Mia's steady breathing and felt strangely peaceful. We still had a lot to learn, many wounds to heal, many nights we'd still be scared, but at least no one had to face it alone. Chapter 8, An Ordinary Day. 6 months went by. David and Mia were still together. No big drama, no crazy events, just ordinary days. Every morning I'd wake up first and make coffee. 2 cups. Black with no sugar for me, lots of milk and sugar for Mia. I'd put hers on the nightstand and sit there for a few minutes watching her sleep. Her hair messy, her face a little puffy, sometimes she'd smack her lips in her sleep. Then she'd open her eyes, look at me, and smile sleepily. "Watching me again?" "Yeah," I'd smile back. "Time to wake up and drink your coffee." She'd sit up, wrap her hands around the warm cup, the steam rising to her face. I'd kiss her forehead and go to work. At night, we'd cook together. I could make a few dishes now, scrambled eggs, braised pork, vegetable soup. Not as good as Mia's, but she still praised me. "You're getting better. Make me something new sometime." After dinner, we'd watch movies or read next to each other on the couch. Sometimes Mia would put her feet on my lap and I'd massage them. She'd tell me stories from school, a student who drew her a picture, a troublemaker who got punished, a kid with beautiful handwriting who got praised. I'd tell stories from the construction site, workers arguing, a broken machine that needed fixing, delays because of rain. Ordinary stories, little things, but I treasured every minute. No one mentioned Lisa anymore. No one mentioned the old fears. We just lived day by day. One Friday night at the end of September, the air was starting to get cool. A sign that autumn was ending and winter was coming. We invited my sister Sarah and her family over for dinner. Sarah came with her husband Mike and their 2 kids, Tommy, 7, and Lily, 5. My 2,000 square foot house suddenly felt smaller than usual. Kids running back and forth, laughter everywhere. The smell of food from the kitchen. Mia made grilled meat and spaghetti, the kids' favorite. She wore her blue apron, busy with pots and pans, while answering Sarah's questions. I sat in the living room, looking into the kitchen through the open doorway. Mia was bending down, listening to Lily tell her something, gently patting her head. Lily grinned, hugging Mia's leg. Mia picked her up and spun her around, making her shriek with laughter. My heart skipped a beat. This was what I'd always wanted. Not movie romance, not fancy love confessions. Just ordinary moments like this. The woman I loved, playing with my niece, in my house, on an ordinary Friday night. "Hey," Sarah tugged my arm, pulling me into a corner. "Come here for a second." I followed her to the hallway. Sarah looked at me, her eyes shining. "Brother, Mia is wonderful." I smiled. "I know. I've never seen you this happy," Sarah continued, her voice catching. "After the divorce, you were like a ghost. Seeing you now, I'm so happy." I patted her shoulder. "Thanks." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "Are you okay? Is it completely better?" I knew what she was asking. Sarah was the only one in my family who knew about my problem. I'd told her right after my wife left because I needed someone to talk to. I shook my head. "No, probably never will be." Sarah's face fell a little. "But I've learned it doesn't matter as much as having someone by your side." I looked into the kitchen where Mia was setting the table. "She knows everything, and she stayed." Sarah followed my gaze, then smiled. "I get it now. Happy for you." We went to the dinner table. The meal was noisy with kids, laughter, random stories. Tommy showed off his good grades. Lily told stories from kindergarten. Mike talked about work. Sarah and Mia discussed recipes. I sat in the middle of it all, quiet, listening. My heart felt full. When the guests left, the house was a mess. Dishes everywhere on the table. Food crumbs on the floor. The kids' toys left on the couch. Mia and I sat down looking at the chaos. She sighed contentedly. "Today was so fun." "Yeah," I nodded, turning to look at her. "The best part was having you here." Mia looked at me, her eyes shining. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder, her hand intertwining with mine. "Thanks for inviting your family," she said softly. "I love your sister's kids, especially the little ones." "They love you too," I kissed her hair. "Watching you play with Lily made me think." I paused, not sure how to put it into words. "Think what?" She looked up. "That this is what I've always wanted, a family." Mia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Me too." We sat there, looking at the messy house, listening to the silence after a noisy day. The house was still 2,000 square feet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It was filled with memories, laughter, and the warmth of two people. That night when we got into bed, I turned off the light. Mia turned toward me, her hand on my chest. A moment of silence. "David," she called softly. "Yeah? I'm pregnant." My heart stopped. I froze in the darkness, couldn't breathe. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Then Mia continued a little quickly. "Not yours, I mean. I wanted to say if we ever want kids, I'm open to exploring options. I've read some articles, there are many ways. Adoption too, I just wanted you to know." She paused, taking a breath. "I don't need you to be fixed to have a family with you." I lay still in the darkness. Tears started flowing, wetting my pillow. Not from sadness, from a feeling too big, too full, too much to hold in my chest. A woman was telling me she wanted to have children with me, not by hoping I'd get better, by finding another path, together. A woman was telling me she chose me, not despite my problem, but accepting it as part of who I am. I pulled Mia into my arms, holding her tight. "Thank you," I whispered, tears still flowing. "Thank you for everything." Mia hugged me back, gently patting my back. "Are you crying?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Because I'm too happy." She laughed softly in the darkness, kissing my cheek. Silly. We held each other, saying nothing more. Outside, the autumn wind blew gently, yellow leaves falling on the street. Winter was coming. But in this house, in each other's arms, we weren't afraid of the cold anymore. I closed my eyes, thinking about the future. A future that might have kids, might not. A future that might be easy, might be hard. But one thing was certain. Mia would be by my side. And to me, that was enough. Chapter 9, The Truth About Mia's Past. One night at the end of October, when the first cold winds of the season were blowing through the neighborhood, Mia told me the whole truth about her marriage. We sat in the kitchen, 2 cups of hot tea steaming on the table. Outside, a light rain fell, tapping softly against the window. Mia stared into her tea, silent for a long time, like she was gathering courage to say something. Then she began. Her ex-husband's name was Mark. They dated for 2 years before getting married. At first, everything was good, but slowly, little by little, Mark started to change. "He never hit me," Mia said, her voice soft but clear. "I almost wish he had, because if he hit me, I'd know I was being abused. But he didn't." She paused, taking a sip of tea. "He just talked." "Talked about what?" I asked. Mia looked out the window, her eyes distant. "Said my cooking wasn't good. Said I didn't dress nicely. Said his friends thought I was boring. Said I wasn't as smart as his female coworkers. Said I was lucky to have him, because no one would want a country school teacher like me." I was quiet, something twisted inside me, uncomfortable. "At first I didn't believe it," Mia continued. "I thought, I'm not that bad." But hearing it every day, every month, every year, eventually I started believing it. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she wasn't crying. I started being afraid to cook, afraid he'd criticize me. I started wearing baggy clothes so he wouldn't say I was trying too hard to be attractive. I stopped seeing friends because he said they weren't good for me. I lived in a cage, David, a cage made of words. My hands clenched under the table. 7 years, Mia said, her voice choking. 7 years of hearing those things every day. By the end, I didn't know who I was anymore. I was just a shadow of the woman I used to be. Tears began to fall. Silent tears, without sound, dropping onto the table. When he said there was someone else, I wasn't surprised. I just wondered, what does she have that I don't? Then I thought, she must be prettier, smarter, more interesting. Because he'd been telling me that for 7 years. I stood up, walked around the table, and sat next to her. I put my hand on her shoulder, gently pulling her toward me. After the divorce, it took me 3 years, Mia said, her voice rough. 3 years to learn to love myself again. Therapy, reading books, meditation, reconnecting with old friends. Slowly, I realized it wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It was that he was a bad person. She paused, taking a deep breath. But the scars are still there, David. Some days I wake up and still hear his voice in my head. You're not good enough. Sometimes I look in the mirror and see an old, ugly, boring woman. I held her tighter. When I met you, Mia continued, I saw someone else fighting their own demons. You have your own wounds. You're scared too. I didn't come to save you. I came because I understand. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red, wet. I understand what it's like to be judged by standards that aren't yours. I understand what it's like to be left because you don't meet someone's expectations. I understand the fear of opening your heart. I stroked her hair, saying nothing. I dated a few people after the divorce, Mia said, her voice softer. But every time they found out I wasn't young anymore, that I'd been divorced, they'd leave. One guy said straight up, "I need a woman who hasn't been married before to start a family." Others just went quiet and disappeared. She smiled. She smiled sadly. This society teaches women that their value is in youth and looks, just like it teaches men that their value is in what they can do in the bedroom. Those words landed between us. I realized she was talking about me, about my fears, about what I'd kept hidden for so long. "I know you're scared," Mia looked at me. "Scared you're not enough. Scared that one day I'll realize and leave you. But don't you see, David? I'm just as scared. We're more alike than you think." I looked at her. A woman who'd been emotionally abused for 7 years. A woman who'd spent 3 years learning to love herself. A woman who understood my pain not from books or movies, but because she'd been there too. I'd never seen Mia as beautiful as she was right then. "I love you," I said, for the first time. Not in a romantic moment, not after a sweet gesture. Just an ordinary moment, sitting in the kitchen drinking tea, tears still on her cheeks, rain still falling outside. Mia looked at me, eyes wide. "I love you for who you are," I said, my voice rough. "Because you understand, because you stayed, because you didn't run when you learned the truth about me, because you taught me that some things matter more than the invisible standards society sets." I reached up and wiped her tears. "I love you because you fought to love yourself, and because of that, you can love me." Mia looked at me for a long time. Tears fell again, but this time she was smiling. "I love you too," she said, her voice choked. "I love you because you're fighting too, because you dare to open your heart even though you're scared, because you choose me every day." She wrapped her arms around me, burying her face in my chest. I held her tight, feeling her warmth, her heartbeat. Outside, rain kept falling, but in the kitchen, 2 cups of tea had gone cold, and we held each other, saying nothing more. That night, we didn't sleep. We lay on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, talking until morning. Mia told me more about the years in that cage, about the times she wanted to leave but wasn't brave enough, about the day she decided to file for divorce even though she was terrified. I told her about my ex-wife, about Lisa, about being left, about the fear every time I loved someone. We didn't comfort each other with empty words. We just listened, understood, stayed. "You know," Mia said as dawn began to break, "I used to think I'd never love anyone again. I thought I was broken. Couldn't trust anyone." She lay in my arms, looking out the window. "But then I met you." "Me too," I said. "I thought I'd live alone forever." Then, one Christmas Eve, someone knocked on my door, holding a box of cookies. Mia smiled, a gentle smile in the morning light. "My cookies back then were terrible. Did you even eat them?" "Yeah, they were still warm," I smiled. "Best cookies I ever had." Liar. "Seriously, because they came from you." We looked at each other, laughing. Then quiet again, watching out the window. Morning light crept through the curtain cracks, casting pale yellow streaks on the floor. Snow on the roof began to melt, drops falling onto the windowsill, drip, drop. Winter was almost over. I looked at Mia sleeping in my arms, her face strangely peaceful. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Thank you for knocking on my door." Outside, the first ray of approaching spring sunshine came through the window, warm and gentle. Chapter 10, 1 year later. Christmas 1 year later. I sat at the dining table, Mia next to me, across from Lily, Mia's daughter, 7 years old, busy coloring a Christmas card. The tree in the living room was beautifully decorated, colorful lights blinking, red ornaments hanging from branches. On the table was a pile of cards we were preparing to send. The first one had a picture of us, me, Mia, and Lily, sitting by the tree. Lily held a giant lollipop, grinning with her missing teeth. Mia leaned her head on my shoulder, her hand on mine. I looked at the camera, smiling softly. I picked up a pen and wrote on the back, "Wishing you a warm Christmas from our little family." Then I signed, David, Mia, Big, and Lily. I looked at the words I'd just written, our little family. 3 words I couldn't even imagine a year ago. 3 words I thought I'd never have. Mia looked over and smiled. "Done writing? There's still a bunch." "Yeah, almost," I smiled back, picking up the next card. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Mia and I sat in the living room, drinking wine and looking out the window. Snow fell outside, soft and slow, blanketing the whole neighborhood in white. My eyes drifted to Mike's house next door. Through the window, I could see his family still gathered around the dinner table. Mike carrying a huge turkey, Jenny setting out plates, the three kids running around. The same scene as a year ago. But this time, I didn't feel jealous or hurt. I just saw a happy family. And I knew in this house I had one too. "What are you looking at?" Mia asked. "Mike's house," I pointed. "A year ago I'd look over there and wish I had what they had." Mia was quiet, following my gaze. And now, I turned to look at her. The warm light fell on Mia's face, making it look so soft and gentle. No more dark circles under her eyes like when we first met. No more looking at the world with suspicion. Just Mia. The woman I loved, sitting next to me, drinking wine, watching the snow. "Now I don't need to wish anymore," I said, "because I have it." Mia smiled, placing her hand on mine. An ordinary handhold, nothing special. But to me, it was everything. 5 years ago, I sat alone in my 2,000 square foot house, keeping the TV on until 2 a.m. just to avoid the silence. I'd buy one apple, one small milk carton, one pack of noodles, and tell myself, "You can do this." 5 years ago, I'd look at my neighbors gathered together and think, "I'll never have that." But now I had Mia. I had Lily every other weekend. I had Sunday mornings drinking coffee together, dinners cooking together, movie nights on the couch, laughing over random stories. I had laughter in my house. "What are you thinking?" Mia asked. "About last year," I said. "This time last year, I sat alone, eating noodles, crying into my bowl. Then you knocked." Mia looked at me, her eyes soft. "I remember my cookies back then were awful." "Yeah, they really were," I laughed. "But I ate them all. Because you're nice. Because for the first time in 5 years, someone knocked on my door." We were quiet for a moment. Snow kept falling outside, white flakes, slow and peaceful. "David," Mia called softly. "Yeah? Are you happy?" A simple question, but I had to think for a moment. I remembered the past 5 years. Long sleepless nights from nightmares, times I'd look in the mirror and hate myself. Times I'd wonder, what was I born for if I can't fulfill a man's basic role? Then I remembered the past year, mornings waking up next to Mia. Times she'd hug me from behind and whisper, "You can relax." Times she'd look at me and smile, not a polite smile, but a real one, with her whole heart. I looked down at my hand. Mia's hand was still holding mine, warm, steady, ordinary as breathing. "I'm happy," I said. Mia looked at me, waiting. "I'm happy because I have you," I continued. "Because you didn't leave. Because you taught me that a man's value isn't in that one thing." Mia smiled, that smile, the one I loved most in the world. "And you taught me that a woman doesn't have to be perfect to be loved." She leaned her head on my shoulder. I kissed her hair, that familiar herbal smell, the one I'd gotten so used to that if it were missing, I had noticed immediately. And the kitchen soup was still on the stove, its smell drifting faintly. In the living room, the tree blinked with colored lights. On the wall, there was a new photo frame, us with Lily at the park last fall. Outside, snow fell. Chicago winters were still cold. But in this house, it wasn't cold anymore. I looked out the window at the white snowflakes blowing in the wind. A year ago, I sat alone wishing for someone beside me. A year later, I had everything. Not a fairy tale, not a miracle, just two lonely people finding each other and deciding to stay. "Mia," I called. "Yeah?" "Thank you for knocking on my door that night." She looked up at me and smiled. "Thank you for opening it." Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, the house was warm. Food smells from the kitchen. Soft Christmas music. Warmth from the person beside me. And I knew I wasn't lonely anymore. Sometimes what we need most isn't to be fixed. It's to be accepted and loved for who we are. Not despite our flaws, but including them. It took David 5 years to learn that. 5 years living alone in a 2,000 square foot house, facing the silence every night. But in the end, he learned. And when he opened his door that Christmas Eve, he didn't just open it for Mia. He opened it for himself.